The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to this webinar from Flinders University, where I'm going to talk with you a bit what we do in science at Flinders. My name is Associate Professor Ingo Köper, and I'm a member of the College of Science and Engineering. By training, I'm a chemist, but I know a bit about the other sciences, so I'll talk with you about this. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which all Flinders campuses are and where we work. I'm currently on land of the Ghana people, but Flinders spreads across multiple lands and territories, so we acknowledge all their traditional custodians. So let's talk about science. Why do we want to study? Why do you want to study science? Or my role should be really to convince you that studying science might be a good idea in the future. So there are different reasons why students come to us and study science. You might have a passion for a specific area. You might have a certain interest. You want to earn a lot of money. There are a lot of jobs in the future in the science area, so that's definitely a very valid reason. You could also think about what you need to help society. And about 10 years ago, a famous person, Richard Smalley, who won a Nobel Prize, which typically is a good indicator that he knows what he's talking about, he thought about, well, what are the 10 problems that humanity will be facing in the next 50 years? So we're already 10 years in. So he came up with 10 problems, which range from energy, water, poverty, diseases. Disease is quite a hot topic at the moment, through to population. Now, if you want to address all of those, well, you need to study a lot of different things. However, you can actually address most of them if you solve the first problem. If you can solve the energy problem, you can actually do a lot about water. If you have enough energy, you can purify water. That leads to better food production. If you have energy, that actually helps education as well. And so energy is a big problem in the future. Now, to solve energy problems, you definitely need scientists and engineers. So if you want to help humanity, science might be a good way to start. So if you come to Flinders to study science, and I'll talk a bit more about a few different flavors of science, but in principle, there are different ways how you can approach this, or different degrees to what we have. We have a Bachelor of Science. If you want, you can combine a Bachelor of Science and Arts, which is quite a base structure where you can do different types of science. We have that you can do an honors version, so you can enroll in a 3 or in a 4-year degree. We have science for high achievers. If you have ambitions, if you have high GPA, that leads you into a high achievers programs. There are different specializations and majors, and we'll talk in a few minutes what the differences are. The core really about science at Flinders is that we're very flexible. While we have programs of study, there's a lot of flexibility in there where you can cater to what your real interest is, or we can adjust your study plans to really cater for what you really want to do, what you really like. Quite importantly, we have connections to industry. One of the reasons to study science might be to get a good job in science, to earn some money maybe afterwards. So we acknowledge this, and we actually put things into place that will prepare you for the job market. Industry placement is one of these things. I said there are different ways how you can get into science, or the different structures. It is slightly linked to your ATAR score. So for lower ATAR scores, please come. We'll welcome you with open arms. We'll have a Bachelor of Science where you take a major. There are even pathway programs that can get you into the structures. If you manage to get a higher ATAR score in school, well, you can already pick a specialization that is a bit more dedicated, more focused towards one area. If you even have an even higher GPA or an higher ATA score, you can directly go into an honors program, which sets you up on a pathway towards an honors degree. Or then we have a high achievers program if your ATA is really, really high. However, your ATA doesn't really matter that much. If your dream is to become a scientist, maybe do an honors, maybe even do a PhD, there's a pathway, because these structures, they are not fixed. Once you're in, you can easily transfer through to other degrees. There's a lot of flexibility for you to explore what you want. So I had already touched on industry placement or industry engagement. So most courses will have the opportunity to do industry placements. All our degrees have some connection to industry, or we prepare you for industry. So we might not have a dedicated placement where you go to an industry partner. It is almost possible in all degrees, but we have similar things where we look at employability skills. We talk to potential employers and ask, so what do you want your future employers to know? What do you want your future employers to do? And we embed this into our courses. So typically our students that finish, that get a degree, they should be prepared to get a job. And a lot of them get some jobs even beforehand. So this is one example. This is because I know David very well. I've worked with him. In his second year, he won a scholarship to do a little research placement, a research project, and went to a company here very local, almost on the campus. He then did a second placement with him, and once he's finished, he isn't finished yet, but when he finishes next year, he will have a job with the company. So it's one of our success stories. And there's multiple similar students that went through industry connection and actually ended up having a job. So I want to talk a little bit more in detail about 5 different areas that we cover. And I'll talk about these because this is really where I'm working a lot into. So we have a forensic science degree. I'll talk about chemistry and physics. I'll touch on mathematics and nanotechnology as well. Because these are they're relatively similar areas and where maybe you have an interest in them. So we have a degree in forensic and analytical science at Flinders, which is a great degree. It's there are a lot of students in there. It's a very successful degree. When you think about forensics, typically, or the first thing you often think is about, well, okay, blood, crime, CSI. Yes, we do all this, but we actually do much more. So we work with forensic science organizations to talk about what do you need if you do some forensics. We have experts here that teach you, and half of the time they actually spend in court because they have to help the lawyers to actually convict the perpetrators. But it's not only CSI. When you do a degree in forensic analytical science, you actually learn a lot of analytical skills, critical thinking. And so at the end, yes, you might get a job in forensic science at CSI if you want to, but there's a lot of other areas where you can actually find a job. Forensic laboratories, analytical laboratories, anything that is lab-based, you will be very well prepared, for example. So forensic analytical science is quite broad, actually, and we've divided it basically in 2 areas. You can do forensic biology, so it's where you look a bit more on DNA, body fluids, blood splatters, everything you see on TV as well. That's covered in one area. We also do forensic chemistry, where you look more at drugs, how they work, arson, where we look at evidence for this and try to find explosives, gunshot residues. There are 2 different areas, but there's actually the possibility to do both, or most of both, and merge this and get a good overview in forensic science. Now, half of this is based on chemistry. So yes, we do a lot of chemistry and we do a lot of physics. So often when I talk to students like you or to parents, what is chemistry? What do we do in chemistry? What do we do in physics? Well, typically the first image that comes to mind is something like this. Yes, we make things that stink, smell, that explode. It looks very messy. Or if you want to do physics, well, it's all these weird equations that we want to do. Yes, we do these things, but we do actually much more. So I asked a few of my colleagues, so if you think about chemistry, what comes to mind? So it is working in a lab. It is making molecules. Maybe not only, well, you can either synthesize them really, but there's also a theoretical aspect to chemistry that if you want, there's a lot of trace evidence, like that's the link to the forensic science where you make chemistry. Or I put some areas together we actually work in chemistry, areas that our students work on, right? It goes from synthesizing natural products to building biosensors, if you want, making new polymers, and or working on solar cells. Again, solar cells, right? In the beginning, I mentioned energy. Here's your direct link, how this helps. So that's chemistry. I've also asked some colleagues, well, if you think about physics, what does that mean? It's much more than just pure equations. It's applications of physics, and you'll find them everywhere around you. And similar to the chemistry, well, we do a lot of physics here, which is, some of this is not what you would think physics is typically about. Yes, we talk about electron scattering or modeling planetary movements, but again, you need physics to build new solar cells. You need physics for 3D printing. 3D printing is one of the upcoming topics if you want to look at new materials. If we ever going to travel into space, we will need some 3D printers in there to make all the materials. So what I'm trying to say is, well, we do all this, and it's not necessarily what your first image about chemistry or physics might be. It can be much more, and we cover all this in our degrees as well. Something very similar is mathematics, right? If I say, do you like mathematics? Well, I can predict most of you will say, oh no, no mathematics. Mathematics is not necessarily what you do at high school. Mathematics can be much more or very different. So we have a very good mathematics department. You can study mathematics at Flinders, or you can combine this with some other techniques. And it's much more than just algebra or calculus. You need mathematics in a lot of scientific areas, right? If you want to model how a disease spreads, if you want to model when you reach a certain vaccination limit, that's based on mathematics. If you want to predict the weather, yes, you need some meteorologists, you need to understand something about the climate, but if you really want to predict it, you need mathematics. So at Flinders, we really focus on the applied sense of mathematics and put this into the courses we teach, but also the research that we are actually doing. One interesting thing about mathematics is, while yes, it might sound scary, and there's a lot of jobs available if you have good mathematics skills at the moment. And I'm pretty sure that will only grow in the future. So according to some sources, math has actually the highest possible future growth in terms of jobs available on the market. If you like chemistry, physics, and maybe a little bit of math, and you want to do something where you can put everything together, we have something for you. You could do nanotechnology. So we have a degree in nanotechnology. What is nanotechnology? Nano basically means it's very, very small. Right? It's 10 to the minus 9 meter is 1 nanometer. And if you go to that size range, things become a bit different. The physics are different at that small size range. So you see on this little image here where these 4 different colored solutions are, that's actually gold nanoparticles in there. So if you make gold really, really small, it's no longer golden. It actually can be red or purple or blue. So we teach what's happening at the nanoscale. We do a lot of research in the area. So some of the world leading experts in nanotechnology are actually at Flinders. Flinders was the first university to offer a degree in nanotechnology. So we've been doing this for quite a while, which I think we can say we know what we're doing. So it's a very interesting topic, and applications of nanotechnology are everywhere. I'm pretty sure you have used some nanotechnology today, or you've benefited from nanotechnological products. You using a computer, how you make the transistors is nanotechnology in there. You've probably used your phone today. Well, without nanotechnology, you wouldn't have it. So energy production, again, I'll come back to what I said in the beginning. Well, the new or modern solar cells, they all use a lot of nanotechnology that you'll use. But there's much, you'll find it in your everyday life. A lot of cosmetics actually are built on nanotechnology. So where do we go from here? If you have a passion in science and you get a science degree, well, the world is open to you. I always think a science degree is, you're not fixed into one specific area. My colleagues in nursing will excuse me, but if you study nursing, you'll become a nurse. Most of the time, if you study science, well, you can do a lot. You can go in the cosmetic industry, you can go in the pharmaceutical industry, you can go into mining, you can look after the environment, you can go into food process. Most wineries actually employ chemists to make sure their wines are appropriate. So there's a lot of areas that you have where you can potentially find a job afterwards. I always think becoming scientists is a very good thing, because that sets you up for the future and potentially might save the world. So how do we go there? Well, you typically apply through the SETAC webpage. The early closing date is quite soon, but whenever you can, apply through there, and then you'll get your offers emailed out. If you want to know more, this was quite short, but Flinders Open Day 365 is there for you, where you can find a lot of information about our courses, about the universities, about life on campus and everything around. If you're booked in for one of our on-campus sessions soon, we're very much looking forward to meeting you. If you come to session 1, you might even see me. And if not, well, we'll have all your different pipes where you can get some more information or get in contact with us. Ask us if you have any questions, and we'll try to help you. Now, do we have any questions to this?
Hi, Ingo. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. We have had a question come through from prospective student named Crystal. Crystal would like to know, do we get any elective topics?
Very good question, Crystal. Yes, there are elective topics. We actually try to make our degrees as open as possible, and almost every degree will have space for electives. Often it might even be up to 4 or even more topics that you can take as an elective. At Flinders, in one semester, you typically study 4 topics. So if you want to do French, you can do French. Or if you want to do, I had students that have done some Greek, there's space to do this.
Thank you. We have had another question come through from prospective student named Mark. Mark would like to know, what do you recommend as a postgraduate courses to assist with a...
So Thanks, Mark. Postgraduate courses are interesting. And it's an interesting concept. Well, we have a lot of different postgraduate courses. We have master's courses. We have some graduate diplomas or graduate certificates that you can take. For example, we have a graduate certificate in environmental health, which would be great to be combined with a degree, a Bachelor of Science in biology, for example. That would nicely fit together. You could do a Bachelor of Science in physics and then combine this with an IT degree, for example. So we can combine a lot of different degrees. We have a few degrees that we offer from the start as a combined bachelor master degree. Most of our degrees will have an honors component, so you'll finish an honors and might go into a PhD afterwards. So there's a lot of flexibility, a lot of different options that you can take.
Thank you. And we have had one more question come through from a prospective student named Ben. Ben would like to know how many people are let into this course per year.
Thanks, Ben. That's a very good question. As many as we can. Well, we don't have any caps really. If you want to apply, and you'll most likely get an offer if you meet the entry criteria. But we don't have a limit on numbers.
Thank you, Ingo, for that response. That was all the questions that we had for this evening.
Okay, good. Then thanks for joining, and I hope to see you on campus. If you do, just say hello.